Hi, I'm Joe Wainz, Productivity Energizer at TurtleWorks, and we're going to talk about tracking again today, but really we're going to show you some sample solutions that we've built or we've seen. There's 6 in total, and really I want to get into again how the tools inside of Microsoft 365 like SharePoint lists really help us create scalable enterprise level solutions that work so much better than Excel. In the short term, spreadsheets feel like a solution. In the long term, they become a burden. So let's start with a project tracking system. We built several of these. Our latest one was for a $60 million company. You know, in we have the ability to customize or tailor these systems to align specifically with your business. So in the case of this particular business, we chose to use SQL Server in Azure as opposed to SharePoint, but many times we'll use SharePoint from a cost and simplicity perspective. It just depends on the situation. So anyway, with a SharePoint list or even a database table, you have the ability to do things like columns, project name, customer, start date, end date. Any of the columns, any of the aspects of your project that you need to track in your language, you can do simply. And then, of course, you have ways to view that data. So you could be provided with a Gantt chart, or maybe it's a customer view, or it's a due date view, or really however you want to take a perspective and look at your data, you can create views into that. And automations, of course, are always part of this experience. So maybe it's calculations to figure out pricing, or maybe it's notifications internally, or maybe it's notifications to customers. That Amazon experience where you know what's going on with your order all the way through. So it's really a good example of business efficiency using Microsoft's technology. Here's a mock-up of what one of the screens might look like in a project tracking system. Really, it's kind of a SharePoint-ish type of experience, which really works well. A lot of flexibility and insight and access with SharePoint, your ability to access your data from anywhere. So quality inspection log, we've done some of these. The latest one we did, again, SharePoint list, replaced a whole bunch of Excel files. It's really an alternative to Excel spreadsheets. SharePoint lists they've got some great features that Excel doesn't have. And one of those examples is, in this case, SharePoint has some great search features, and this customer is on the hook for being able to retrieve inspection results for the lifetime of the product. So they were crawling through hundreds of spreadsheets to find serial numbers. Now they just go to the list and enter the serial number. Saves them a lot of time. In addition to that, we hooked Power BI to it, so we were able to get all that daily parts per million reporting and whatever else done automatically as opposed to somebody manually compiling that data from multiple spreadsheets. And the big win is we save them about 60 hours a week in manual data entry by integrating it with SAP. So they no longer have to go to SAP and type in serial numbers for inspected parts. That's happening every 5 minutes automatically. So, a real win. Again, automations can be introduced to this. So maybe there's a particular limits that if you exceed, you really want to get notified so you can go change something on the line. Here's a mock-up of what the inspection log might look like. We've got conditional formatting available inside of lists, so you can do some pretty cool things from a colors and presentation perspective. And then, here's a mock-up of a dashboard or report, insight into the scrap itself, or quality itself, I'm sorry. And then, number 3 is a rework and scrap tracker. I have 6 total, so this is the third one. So this is happening everywhere. You've got to track rework and scrap, and maybe you're doing it inside your ERP, or maybe your ERP doesn't lend itself well to it. So you end up in typically Excel. Again, SharePoint lists. SharePoint makes a really good tool to replace this, your spreadsheets. You've got automations, you've got Power BI that can tie into it. You have views that allow you to tailor how you want to see your data depending on the situation. So it becomes a mouse click to look at last month's data versus this month's data, or this particular product line versus that product line. Reason codes, operator, you can really sort of zone in on what's going on with the data, but you can store millions of rows. So you've got, it's really more of a database UI kind of experience that you're getting. Customer order issue, so issue with the order from the customer has. Somewhere you need to track that. So again, we're looking at SharePoint lists. We can have automation to keep the customer updated, or you can create online forms that then generate the rows inside of SharePoint so the customer can fill out the form themselves. Status updates, again, can be automations. Another good example of Microsoft technology. Change request log is the fifth item, and this is where customers asking for changes on particular things. So I want to point out the approval process here. So pending approvals, or the approval workflow, if you've got sort of multiple people who have to approve it based on roles. So you submit it, your supervisor needs to approve it, his manager needs to approve it. I've seen it where the owner of the company has to approve it in some situations, or based on the product line, it's this manager as opposed to that manager. So all of that can be captured inside of Power Automate workflow. And most of that, if you've got some decent training, you could actually build yourself. Now, AI-powered quoting system is the final thing I want to talk about. And we've built many quoting systems for customers, typically using SharePoint. They work well. They work really well if you've got a volume of quotes, 30 quotes a week, 20 quotes a week. It's just a lot to keep track of. And there's all these documents often associated with a particular quote. So how do you organize all of that? SharePoint has the tools for really keeping things together with documents and document sets, document libraries, and metadata. Really helps you pull all that together in a simple way. And now we're just going to layer AI on top of that. So using AI, we can build an LLM based on your existing quotes. So you've got now all of this history that can be used to generate things like estimated material and labor costs, and it can help generate a draft quote. Of course, after it does all of that work of generating the estimate and the quote itself that you would send out, it needs to be reviewed by a human. AI is not perfect, but it sure saves a lot of time in doing some of this busy work. And then after you review it, again, Power Automate 365 lets you generate PDFs. It lets you track your quote to order conversion rates. Send that quote out. Give them access to things that maybe they need access to related to that quote. So it really, using AI and building a quoting system inside of 365 really streamlines the process. Here's a simple screenshot of what a quoting system might look like, that you could build, again, using Microsoft 365 tools. So that's it for solutions. There'll be a link below that will take you to our free software success review, so you can click on that and fill out the form and get that process started. It really is a way of possibly saving you tens of thousands of dollars in your organization, which we've done in the past just by going through how people are working, what softwares they're using, taking a quick look at their process. And then there's also a link that'll take you to the full document that'll show all the solutions that are possible with Microsoft 365. So thanks again. I'm Joe Wainz, Productivity Energizer at TurtleWorks. You have a great day.